This is Studio 809.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. I am your host, Hiking Bob Falcone, and you can find me, as you know, on my website, hikingbob.com, which has links to my social media, my other podcast, my photography website. Also, you can email me or contact me or whatever you'd like to do from there. If you have any suggestions for topics for the podcast or any comments on podcasts that I've done, and also if you have any suggestions for a guest to be on the podcast. All of that is at hikingbob.com. Also, if you'd like to help support this podcast, you can do so at Patreon, patreon.com/hikingbob, and help support this podcast and keep it going. If you're a regular listener, then you know that a couple of weeks ago we announced that this podcast is going to go from weekly to twice a month. So today is the second podcast for June, and I'll be back here in a couple of weeks in July. I have a couple of really good interviews working on right now, so I think they should find that pretty interesting. And today I'm recording this solo because I'm away on a short trip. So Kevin is not here with me today, and we're not doing this on Zoom because I mostly want just to discuss this trip that I'm on and just kind of let you all know what I'm doing. But in any case, that's the scoop here with the podcast. So you expect to see him twice a month, not every 2 weeks, but twice a month. There is a difference. And that's what's going to be going on here. And I'd still be interested in hearing what you think about the idea of going to twice a month and leaning more towards interviews. But occasionally we'll do something like this. And of course, Kevin will still be a fixture on the podcast when we're not doing interviews. But let me know what you think. And you can do that again. Go to hikingbob.com and click on the contact link there and let me know. Also, don't forget to sign up for my newsletter, which comes out once a week and features things like the latest podcast or other things that I want to just bring to your attention that you may not have fit on a podcast, or come in between podcasts now that we're doing them twice a month. So anyway, I am in North Carolina. I am spending some time here to take pictures of waterfalls. So I'm down here in the town of Brevard, which is western North Carolina, about 40 minutes south of Asheville, North Carolina, near the Pisgah National Forest. There's also the Blue Ridge Park, the Blue Ridge Highway is not far from here. Also, the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, about an hour or so away. But the reason I came here was for the tremendous number of waterfalls in the area, with the goal of photographing as many of them as possible in one short week. Now, there are like 250 of them out here, and I'm recording this the day before the podcast goes live. So I'm recording this on Tuesday. Podcast is going to go live on the 19th of June. And as of today, I've seen 14 waterfalls, which is far better than I anticipated doing. And I have one more full day here. When you're listening to this, I'll be spending my last full day here in North Carolina. I'm not sure how many more I'll get to. But I've been averaging 3 or 4 a day. The first day, I only saw one because it was a long drive out to see it and a long drive back. But I've been seeing several a day. So it's been a lot of fun. And I've traveled as far as 2 hours one way just to visit 1 or 2 waterfalls. And they're spectacular out here. I will tell you that seeing all these waterfalls, and they're just spectacular. And this is a beautiful part of the country. The scenery here in North Carolina, which I've never visited before, is absolutely gorgeous. Everything is very green. It's rained quite a bit since I've been here, mostly at night or late afternoon, so it hasn't really interrupted my plans. It's been fairly warm, but no worse than the mid-80s. I think it's actually been hotter in Colorado than it has been out here in the week that I've been away. I know that there were some days, I've heard it's been in the 90s back home in Colorado Springs. So it's actually hasn't been as warm here as it is there, but it's obviously, as you can imagine, way more humid here, with the humidity being pretty high. As many of you probably know, I grew up in New Jersey, and over there, this time of the year, June, there would be bugs that you just couldn't stand. Mosquitoes, gnats, ticks, horse flies, greenhead flies, were all over the place. You just couldn't avoid them. And chiggers, which You don't know what chiggers are. They're like a little bug that's in the sand, and as you walk, these chiggers get into your skin and they just itch the daylights out of you. Trust me, I've dealt with them, and I don't wish that anybody. There's not enough Benadryl cream in the world to take care of the chigger infestation that you can get. Anyway, surprisingly, not many bugs here. I don't know what the difference is. There's plenty of water here, plenty of vegetation, just like back in New Jersey. I've hardly seen any bugs here. And it's interesting because in New Jersey, you almost have to buy DEET by the case. They even have it at the checkout lines at all the stores. You just buy a bottle every time you go to the store. I don't even see DEET being sold here. I mean, I'm sure it is. I'm not spending a lot of time in a Walmart or a Walgreens or a Target or any place like that, but I'm not seeing much DEET for sale here. There just aren't many bugs. I think I've seen one mosquito. I've seen a few bees, bumblebees and on the flowers and stuff, but just not much here. So it's interesting, the difference. I expected to come out here and just be miserable with mosquito bites and stuff, and haven't had anything like that happen at all. So I'm pretty happy with that thing. Anyway, like I said, I've come out here to take pictures of waterfalls. Photography is my thing. I've been doing a little bit of hiking. I've done a couple of hikes where I've had to hike in a ways to go see some of the waterfalls. But let me tell you how I got to this point. If you've been a constant listener to this podcast, you know that I've taken a lot of trips with organized tour groups. I've done a number of trips with National Geographic. I've done them with Off the Beaten Path. I've done them with REI Adventures. And there are advantages to doing trips with a group like that. And one of the advantages, of course, is that if you need to go someplace that requires an advance reservation, or you need a permit for it, sometimes these can be hard to get. For example, when I hiked to the with REI Adventures, I hiked to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. Well, why do they do it with REI Adventures? Well, a couple of reasons. One is to get a spot to stay at the Phantom Ranch at the bottom of the Grand Canyon is you almost have to work it out almost 18 months in advance, which is, who knows what they're doing 18 months of, from any time. And hiking in the Grand Canyon is obviously a dangerous thing to do. And I did it around Halloween, so it was the end of October. But it's a dangerous thing to do. I've never hiked it. I thought I could do it on my own. But recognizing how dangerous and difficult that'd be, it also seemed like it was a smart idea to go with a tour guide who had done it before. And she turned out that she had done it a number of times. She was great. And with other people. All that turned out to be a great idea. I was able to book it. They had already reserved the rooms at the Phantom Ranch. I was going with a guide who knew what they were doing. It wasn't horribly expensive, and I did it. Now that I've done it with somebody, I feel confident that I could hike down there by myself and hike back up. Not in the middle of summer, obviously. Halloween seemed to be a good time to do that. So, but now that I've done it, I feel like I can do it. And I can do more hiking in the Grand Canyon. And there's some places where you absolutely have to go with the group. For example, I went with National Geographic to the Galapagos Islands. Well, it's impossible for a person on their own to go to the Galapagos Islands. You have to go with a tour group, and they're tightly regulated. So if you want to go to a place like that, you have to go with some type of a tour group. And sometimes it's just easier, especially when you're doing something that's a long distance. You're going to be going from point A to point B, a lot of travel. Sometimes it's easier just to go with a group. For example, next year I'm going around Iceland with National Geographic. Obviously, that's easier to do with a tour group. Now, a lot of cases, once I've been someplace, I've decided that next time I ever want to go there, I can do it by myself. For example, I went down to Great Bend National Park in Texas with Off the Beaten Path because we were going there in spring. It was obscenely hot. I've never been there. I read up on it. Now that I've been there, I'm comfortable with it. I would probably, next time I go there, probably go on my own. So there are advantages to going to places with groups, to be with people who are familiar with the area. At least it's always good to go to, I think, the first time, especially someplace pretty exotic or hard to get to or anything like that. It's good to go with the group if you can afford it. Sometimes it can be pretty pricey. I get that. I always look for good deals on these things. If you know me, you know that I can be pretty frugal. I rarely ever pay full price for anything. But that's the advantage of going on some of these trips with a group. how I ended up here was that there was a photography tour group, a company. All they do is take people out to take pictures. Now, some of them are pretty exotic places, obviously, but they also had one where they were doing a trip here in North Carolina, right where I'm at right now, at about this time. I think they were either out here last week or they're out here this week. But in any case, they were going to go out and teach people how to take pictures of waterfalls. So I'm looking at that, and it was I thought it was a little on the pricey side for like a 5-day trip. It was around $5,000. And that did not include travel, but included everything else. But as I thought about it, I'm going, well, I know how to take pictures of waterfalls. I know how to process the pictures on my computer that I take of waterfalls. The only thing I may not know is where the waterfalls are. I did a little research and ended up with 2 guidebooks about waterfalls in North Carolina. One was geared towards photographers, one was just geared to hikers, but a lot of photo information. There was a map that I bought that had all the waterfalls and it rates them on how photogenic they are. I picked up a trail map, and then I looked around this online. So I did a bit of cross-referencing. I looked at a photo guidebook and saw the waterfalls. I looked at the map and saw where they were. I looked at the hiking guidebook. Then I looked up the waterfalls on Google. I Googled them and saw the pictures of them and said, well, how does this one look? Is it a nice looking one? And basically put down a list of waterfalls I was going to visit. And Brevard, Transylvania County, is like the place to be. It's really close. Everything is right here. There's been a couple I've had to travel a little bit further up on the Blue Ridge Parkway to go see some. But in any case, there are so many right in this county that you can go see. And I visited 14 so far. There's like 250 of them out here. Obviously, I'm barely scratching the surface, but I've seen more than I anticipated. I thought I'd see maybe 10. In any case, once I did that, I realized that I can come out here on my own. I've rented a hotel room, got airfare. I had to fly into Charlotte, which is about 2 hours away, because Southwest, who had a lot of travel points with, does not fly into Asheville. There's only a couple airlines that do, but it's a 2-hour drive on an interstate. It's not that big of a deal. Rented a car, did all that on my own, and I'm doing it for less than half of what it would have cost to go with the tour company. Now, what are the advantages of going to a tour company? A, you'd be hanging around with other people. It could be a good time, a lot of fun, but sometimes it's just good to get away on your own, which I'm kind of doing right now. I'm kind of have a hotel room by myself. And I'm just going out when I want to go out. The rental car I got was pretty nice, and I'm just having a good time. I'm seeing plenty of things. I've talked to a lot of people on the trails. I've talked to a lot of park rangers. They've given me tips on where to go. So the list I had of places to go has kind of been, I'm not going to that one, but I'm going to go to this one instead. Typically, if somebody told me a waterfall was really a good one to see, it turned out to be really a good one to see. So it's been really good going out there and just kind of chatting with people. And I'm not tied to anybody else's schedule, anybody else's itinerary, and I don't have to sit around for an hour later in the day and have somebody tell me how to process the images. There are people that's good for if you're starting out, but for somebody more experienced like me, it's like I just want to go out and take the pictures. So it's been a great trip so far. Let me give you all a couple of tips. Obviously, North Carolina is like any place else in the middle of summer. It's a tourist destination. So I booked a hotel room in Asheville months ago. I booked my flight months ago. I booked a rental car months ago. But a couple of weeks ago, I looked at my travel plans and said, let me double check on the hotel room. So the hotel room I had in Asheville turned out that I could book the same room for about $200 less. So I rebooked it, canceled the first reservation, made the second one, $200 less. And then I said, well, let me see what's available in Brevard, because at the time when I made my initial reservations, Brevard was much more expensive. Well, it turns out the place I'm staying here in Brevard was in between the first reservation I made in Asheville and the second one I made. So it wasn't as cheap as the second reservation, but wasn't as expensive as the first one. But it's also 45 miles closer. And I've driven from here to Asheville. It's a lot of traffic. So it put me closer, and it fell in between price. So it's always good if you're going to do one of these trips on your own to make reservations as early as you can. Get some reservations so you have a place to stay. You're not trying to find a place at the last minute, but also double check before you go a week or two, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before you go and see if the prices have changed and maybe you get a better deal. So one way or another, this turned out to be a better deal for me. If I'd stayed in Nashville, I would have saved several $100 on the hotel room, the exact same hotel room. But checking again in Brevard, it turned out I could get 45 minutes closer and be in between the first and second reservations I had for the hotel room. I was also able to save a little bit on the car rental. It was off by, I think I was able to save about $100 on the weekly car rental, which is I got a small SUV, not a bad deal there. So if you do these things on your own, take a tip from me is make your reservations as early as you can, especially if it's a popular place and it may be a place that's busy, and then check again later. And I don't know why prices go down. Maybe tourism fell off and not as many people were visiting, so they want to fill up the hotel room, so they're going to sell them at a cheaper price. Whatever the reason. Now, sometimes you may check and you have the best deal, which is fine, but you've checked and you made sure you had the best deal. That's what's happened out here. I've done some hiking. It's interesting hiking out here. Number one, the people out here are great. And I've talked about this before about where the better, and I shouldn't use better, where the well-behaved hikers are. And I'm not disparaging my friends and the people I live with in Colorado, but I would tell you what I've seen here and I've seen other parts of the country. Number one, I've not seen a single dog off leash. And this even includes places where they would be allowed off leash, like in the National Forest. Not a single dog off leash. Every dog has been on leash. I have not seen anybody going off trail where they're not supposed to go off trail. Now, if you're in the National Forest, you're allowed to kind of wander through the woods and stuff like that, except where it's signed, obviously, that you have to stay on trails. I've not seen anybody go off trail. I've not seen anybody damaging anything. People are just really well behaved. The few cyclists I've seen, is not nearly as many cyclists here as they are at home, have been really great, and they've been very respectful. To be fair, the cyclists at home, I've seen a definite improvement in their behavior. So I know we'll talk a little bit about cycling here in a little bit, but the cyclists are well behaved, the people are better behaved, and everybody is super friendly here. It's always, hi, how you doing? I've had some great conversations while I'm standing around taking pictures, because sometimes, it's a tourist area, there's waterfalls. People want to go and enjoy the waterfalls, so I have my camera set up and I may have to wait 5, 10, 15 minutes for people to come and go. I'm not going to tell people not to walk, not to go in to where I'm taking my picture. They have a right to be there. So I wait patiently for them to get out of the way, and sometimes I'll chat with people and I'll show them the pictures, and they're pretty cool, and that's how I get suggestions on places to go, especially from the locals. Anyway, everybody's been super, super nice here. It's been really a great time, but people really are just super nice, and the park staff here and the park rangers I've run into and the Forest Service staff, there's National Forest and there's State Forest staff, have been really nice. The parks and public lands here are obviously well funded. They're extremely clean. They're well maintained. The trails are really nice. Signage is great. Obviously, you can see a difference in funding, and funding doesn't necessarily mean that. Now, I was at a state park today, gorgeous state park, beautiful state park, only was established in 1999. Not even an entrance fee, and they have a beautiful visitor center, nice trails, parking lots, not even an entrance fee to go in that state park. I don't know if that's normal for other state parks, but that one at least, which is about 30, 40 minutes down the road, didn't even have an entrance fee, which I was just thrilled with. It was pretty nice. People are super friendly. I will say, though, the drivers here are just as aggressive as the drivers in Colorado. It's unbelievable. But for the most part, people are great. The other thing here is hiking is so much easier here. I think I'm at 1,200 feet, so it's like I feel like Superman. I'm used to breathing at 6,000, 7,000. You know what it's like hiking there, 10,000 feet, 11,000 feet, gasping for air. Here I feel like Superman because I'm used to breathing in thin air, and here I've got all the air I can get, and it's been great. But very soft tread, just different environment. So it's not like that hard, pounded, rocky soil we're used to. It's very soft here. So it's been really nice hiking here. My feet, which have still been giving me some issues, have been doing really well in this environment. It is muddy, it is wet, and I got my boots pretty wet. One day I brought 2 pairs of boots, one to just wear around, the other to go hiking with. I got my boots pretty wet, and me, thinking I'm the smart guy, said, I'm going to put my boots on the back tray, the cargo cover in the SUV. Figuring they'll get sun on them and they'll dry out. Well, a day later, they're still pretty damp. Well, what I forgot was, of course, the humidity here. I ended up having to bring them in and having to dry them in my hotel room because the humidity is so high they just wouldn't dry even in the sun on the back deck of the SUV that I rented. So it was like, got to kind of remember things like that. You get sweaty here real easy because of the humidity. But on the other hand, I am just booking along. People are looking at me carrying a camera bag and a tripod, and I'm just moving along, and I'm like, I feel great. This is wonderful. So it's been pretty cool. The other nice thing is no one has said, bless your heart, to me. And if you know what that means, when somebody in the South says, wow, bless your heart, and that's not a good thing. They're basically telling you you're an idiot. Fortunately, nobody has said that to me. So I've either not been an idiot or I've been able to baffle enough people into thinking I'm not an idiot. But in any case, nobody has said bless your heart to me. If I can get through 24 more hours with that means I've made it all the way through this trip without anybody thinking I'm a moron. Not that I don't think people might have, but in any case, nobody said it to me. So I think that's been really great. Anyway, nicest people in the world out here. Really super friendly. Just really been a great trip, and people are just very accommodating. Everybody says hi to you. You walk by them on a trail. Hi, how you doing? It's just really, really nice. I think the few people that didn't say hi to me were probably tourists and they're not from here anyway. But everybody's just really super sweet and great conversations with people. Just really, really nice. So think about that when you're hiking at home. Say hi to people more often. I need to be better at that myself. But say hi to people, and just, I know I like to at least wave at people, just wave at them, but sometimes maybe just say hi to people and engage them in conversation. Not everybody's going to be into that, that's fine, but I think we need to do that more often, and offer people advice. The other thing here is I don't hear the sentiment that I hear at home in Colorado a lot, which is people, the damn tourists and stuff. I'm not hearing anything like that here. People love the tourists coming here. They recognize the economic value of it. There's a crap load of people here, just like there is anywhere else that's a tourist destination. And I'm not hearing any complaining from anybody about the tourists and stuff like that. So maybe we need to think about that a little bit more. That remember, the tourists are just like people like you and me. I'm a tourist today. This whole week I've been a tourist. And we need to remember, and being a tourist, I'm looking for places to go, looking around, maybe a little confused with where things are. I know probably some of my driving hasn't been great because all of a sudden I have to make a turn someplace. Maybe we need to remember that when we look at those people who are visiting us in Colorado, that they're just like we are, in a different place, in an unusual spot, just kind of give people a little leeway and maybe back off a little bit. Anyway, so that's my trip to North Carolina. I've been taking a boatload of pictures. I posted some of them on Facebook, but I am so far behind in getting impressed because it takes a long time to edit the pictures, especially here on my laptop, which is it's a pretty decent laptop. It's not nearly as powerful as my main computer at home that I process my pictures on. It doesn't have as big a processor, as much memory, it doesn't have as good a graphics card, so it takes a while to process them. But if you're following me on social media, you've seen that I posted some pictures. There's going to be a whole lot more coming, so hold on to your hat and keep an eye out for those. The other thing I want to talk about, a couple more quick news items. The city of Colorado Springs is, and you've probably seen this if you saw my newsletter or on social media, is doing a survey on e-bikes. Now, what is this all about? Well, the idea is that there's a couple of things going on. Let's start off with a couple of things. Currently, any type of motorized use, including e-bikes, is not permitted on any park properties. And it's especially in anything that was acquired under the TOPS program. And the reason for that is there's a line in the ordinance as approved by voters that says there's no motorized use on TOPS properties. But people want e-bikes. So the city is trying to put together a policy, and they're doing a survey right now. And I can't stress enough that you should take this survey. Regardless of what your opinion is on e-bikes, you need to take this survey. and give them some direction. The survey was done at the direction of the mayor, told the Parks Department to do the survey because he wants public involvement on this. I can tell you that there will 99% chance that there's going to be a ballot measure in April on changing the TOPS ordinance to allow e-bikes. But how that ordinance is, or that ballot measure is worded, is going to depend a lot on what comes out of the survey. So I'll put a link in the show notes, but it's coloradosprings.gov/e-bike-input, and vote on and go on there, take the survey, let your opinion be heard. There's a couple alternatives on there, and they want to know your opinion. You have until Sunday, August 1st. Really, really, really highly recommend that you do that. And I know it's easy to be cynical, but please do not be cynical about this. This is really important, and the city is going way out of their way to make sure you're heard. So please do that. One other thing is that the El Paso County Parks have been working on a master plan for Paint Mines Interpretive Park. So they're having an open house to discuss the future of the Paint Mines Park. As you know, it's overrun. A lot of people go out there. There's been some issues with people not behaving well. That is coming up on Thursday, June 27th at the Bear Creek Nature Center on Bear Creek Road from 5 to 6:30 p.m. Highly recommend that you go out there if you're interested in what's going on at the Paint Mines, the future of Paint Mines Park, to take that. And there's also a survey on that also. Unfortunately, the link to that is about a mile long, so I can't give it to you here, but I will post that link in the show notes also. So check on that and see what's going on with the county at one of our most beautiful county parks, which is the Paint Mines. One other thing about e-bikes, and not for nothing, but there seems to be a opinion that e-bikes are universally allowed or not allowed. I will tell you that there's a state forest near here, and it's the DuPont State Recreational Forest. So it's a state forest, but it's geared towards recreation. There's a big sign when you come in there: no e-bikes allowed. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. End of statement. No e-bikes allowed. So e-bikes are not universally allowed, and I can tell you a lot of other places that they're not. Now, Colorado has some specific laws on that, but getting e-bikes allowed in or out of a park is not a slam dunk on anything. So this is, again, reason why you need to really take this e-bike survey for the city and let your opinion be heard. And, I think you're going to see some pretty quick movement on it. And like I said, more than likely, you're going to see a ballot issue on this in April of 2025, and that's going to set the direction of the city of what direction the city is going to go on. That's all I have for today. Pretty short podcast. Looks like we're going to be running just about a half an hour. So look forward to hearing from you. Let me know what you think about the new format and the new schedule. And as always, I look forward to hearing from you. And thanks again for being a listener. And thanks for listening to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.